America runs the largest aviation industry on the planet. More passengers, more flights, more airlines than anywhere else on Earth. And yet, for 2 straight decades, American carriers were flying some of the oldest commercial jets in the developed world. Singapore Airlines retired aircraft after just 10 years in service. Emirates kept their average fleet age under 7 years. That is younger than most used cars on the road. Meanwhile, Delta Airlines was still boarding passengers onto jets built in the 1980s. How does the world's most powerful aviation market end up flying the world's most outdated planes? In the late 1980s, American carriers placed massive orders for a new generation of narrow-body jets. The industry had been transformed by deregulation a decade earlier. Routes were competitive, costs had to come down. Airlines bet on fuel-efficient new aircraft to win on price. 757s, MD-80 series aircraft. These planes were state-of-the-art at the time. They were built well and they were expensive. Airlines financed them heavily and put them to work immediately. Through the 1990s, the strategy looked sound. Jet fuel was cheap, passenger demand was growing year over year, the planes were earning their keep. But the economics shifted fast. By the early 2000s, fuel prices had doubled. By the mid-2000s, they had tripled, then quadrupled. A 30-year-old jet burns significantly more fuel per seat than a modern narrow-body. On certain routes, the difference is enormous, and yet retirement never came. Delta Airlines kept its MD-88s in active service for over 30 years. American Airlines flew MD-80s until 2019. Some of those airframes had first entered service in the early 1980s. The McDonnell Douglas Corporation, the company that built them, no longer exists. Boeing absorbed it in 1997. The manufacturer was gone for over 2 decades. The planes were still carrying passengers. United Airlines still flies Boeing 757s across the Atlantic today. The average fleet age across major American carriers sat above 15 years for most of the 2010s. Some jets were pushing 35, a few were approaching 40. Airlines in Asia and the Middle East were cycling fleets every 10 years. America was holding on to them for 3 times as long. The reason comes down to one brutal financial calculation. A brand new narrow-body jet from Airbus or Boeing costs over $100 million per aircraft. For a fleet of 200 planes, that is $20 billion. Even with financing, that number reshapes an entire balance sheet. So instead of buying new, American carriers perfected the art of buying used. Delta did not just keep its old planes. When it needed more aircraft, it went shopping on the secondary market. Used MD-90s sourced from airlines in China and Japan, an entire fleet of Boeing 717s that Southwest Airlines no longer wanted. One industry analyst described Delta's strategy in 2014 precisely. He said, "Delta does not buy planes, they adopt them. Buy used, fly another decade, and yes, maintenance costs rise, but that is still cheaper than buying new." Flying a 30-year-old aircraft creates a problem most passengers never see. When a plane gets old enough, the manufacturer stops producing parts for it. McDonnell Douglas does not exist. Nobody is manufacturing MD-88 components in 2018. So airlines found a different solution. They buy retired aircraft, park them in the desert, and strip them for spare parts. Aircraft boneyards in the Arizona desert became informal supply chains. Entire airframes were harvested so that sister aircraft could pass their next inspection. And those inspections are extraordinarily intensive. Every few years, an aging aircraft undergoes what is called a D-check, the most comprehensive maintenance procedure in commercial aviation. The plane is stripped to bare metal, panels pulled off, wiring inspected wire by wire, systems disassembled and rebuilt. By the time it is done, huge portions of the aircraft have been replaced. The airframe shell might be original. Almost everything inside could be new, rebuilt, or salvaged from a dead sister plane in the desert. The FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, does not grade on age. If a plane passes inspection, it is airworthy, period. While most people assumed American carriers were simply being negligent, the reality was more complicated. For some of these aircraft, there was genuinely no replacement available. The Boeing 757 is the clearest example. It carries a combination of range and short runway performance that no other aircraft replicates. It can depart from smaller regional airports and fly directly to Europe. Neither Boeing nor Airbus produced a direct equivalent for nearly 20 years. Airlines that wanted to retire their 757s had nowhere to go. And even when better aircraft became available, production lines couldn't keep up. Boeing and Airbus were running years-long order backlogs. You couldn't call Airbus and request 50 jets for the following spring. You would wait 3 years, sometimes 5, sometimes longer. The production pipeline was completely maxed out, so airlines ordered replacements and kept flying old planes while they waited. One airline executive described it as renovating a house while still living in it. The passenger experience deteriorated visibly. Narrow seats, cabin panels yellowing with age, entertainment screens running software from the 1990s, cabins so loud that a 5-hour flight left passengers with ringing ears. For years, airlines escaped the consequences. There was no easy way to broadcast a cracked tray table to the world. Then smartphones arrived. Then social media arrived. One video of a deteriorating cabin interior could reach millions of people in hours. The reputation and cost of old aircraft became measurable in real time. Ask anyone in 2015 to compare flying a major American carrier versus Emirates. It was not a close comparison. The internal logic that long justified old planes was colliding with a new and unforgiving external reality. Buy used, fly long, save on acquisition costs. That math no longer added up, and that gap between American Airlines and the rest of the world had never been more visible. Then 2020 arrived. Traffic collapsed overnight. Airlines grounded thousands of aircraft, and for the first time in a generation, carriers had no excuse to keep old planes flying. If you're parking jets anyway, you retire the ones you never want to see again. Delta retired every single MD-88 and MD-90 in its fleet. American retired most of its remaining 757s and 767s. On June 2, 2020, the final Delta MD-88 revenue flight touched down in Atlanta. 33 years of continuous service. Over. American Airlines then launched the largest fleet modernization spend in their history. Hundreds of next-generation aircraft ordered, fuel-efficient, quieter, modern cabins. For the first time in years, average fleet age began dropping. By 2024, Delta ranked highest in airline customer satisfaction across multiple cabin classes, unthinkable a decade earlier. But then, Boeing's quality problems surfaced. A door plug blew off a 737 MAX 9 in flight over Oregon. The FAA restricted Boeing's production rates. Deliveries slowed sharply. Then, Pratt & Whitney discovered a manufacturing defect in engines powering hundreds of brand-new narrowbodies. Aircraft grounded not because of the airframe, but because of the engines inside them. Airlines that sent old jets to the desert don't have enough new ones to fill the gap. The fleet age that was finally falling has started leveling off. The crisis did not end, it just changed shape. The next time you board a domestic flight, look around. That aircraft has a story older than you might expect. The gap between where American aviation was and where it needs to be is still closing. If that story interests you, subscribe. The next video goes inside something even stranger. Who actually owns the planes you fly on?